In this video, we'll create a puzzle based on this layout. We'll first create an explorer like this, and then we'll create the puzzle version of it, which is just a few steps more. So bring up the Bliss Tiles and Puzzles designer, and we'll start with just what is the default base, and might make modifications to the base later if we see that it's not doing exactly what we'd like. And let me bring this back. So we need to ensure that we have the Bliss SVG files for all of these elements: a dog, a cat, a house, window, and door. And you can see that the window and door sit on top of or inside of the symbol for house. And we'll see how we make that happen in a puzzle sense. This last piece out here is the road in this picture, and it's simply a decoration. It's not a Bliss symbol at all, and it doesn't rise up as far as a Bliss symbol would. So we have gone off and we've identified that those symbols all exist, and we've brought them into PowerPoint individually, ungrouped them, and then changed their line width to 11 because that's what we're used to doing when we create Bliss symbols, the Bliss tactile symbols. We'll see where that might be an issue later in this design and how we can address it. So the first thing let's do is let's begin bringing the pieces in and positioning them. One thing we want to note is that when laying pieces inside of or on top of other pieces, we want to pay attention to the order in which we add them. Later pieces will cut out sections of earlier pieces as necessary. So if we want to put the door and the window inside of the house, we need to put the house down first, or define the house in the order number 1, and then put the door and window afterward. And the order of these two isn't critical because they don't overlap each other. But we're just going to do it in this order because that's the way the picture shows. As for the dog and cat, they both fall outside of all of these other images, so they could come in any order, including order number 1. But these 3 items have to go in basically in this order, with the house going in first. So we'll just begin that way. So I've already gone through the effort of creating SVG files and converting those SVG files into STL files. That process is all described on a different web page and in another video. I believe it's in the Explorers and Challenge Tiles video, so you can just look there. The process is exactly the same here. You need to get those Bliss symbols into an STL form to be included in these puzzles. I'll also ensure that I'm looking at a puzzle base right now so that things are laid out the way I'd like them to be laid out. So I choose puzzle base, and now I'm going to begin adding. Oh, the other thing I've got is I've got no selected for including puzzle base slots, because right now I don't want to see a slot for a piece. I want to see the actual raised image. I can in fact close this for now, and this for now, and actually this for now. So putting in piece number 1, I've put the STL file for the house in in the Beyond Core Concepts folder. So we'll type this in here. And now the house appears. And we can see right away that the scale is off, and it's also is eventually need to be moved down a bit. But the scale is off from where I want it. I'd like it to be probably, I don't know, twice as big as this. So let's change the scaling first. So this is the scaling for piece 1. We're going to double it to make it 200%. Okay, and then what we notice is that the width of the house also got thicker along with the overall size of the house. So how do we address this? We don't want some big thick shape on our puzzle. And this is tied back to the fact that we originally made the width of the lines 11 pixels. So we can go back. So this is again tied to the fact that the width of the lines is 11 points in PowerPoint. We can change that to other values, and on the next slide I just took the same SVG file, actually a copy from the previous slide, and changed it to something smaller. I first changed it to 8 points and then to 4 points just to get a feeling for what the difference would look like. And we'll take a look now in the designer. Remember that I've taken each one of these, converted it to an SVG, then use the SVG to STL converter to convert it to an STL before I can mess with it in the puzzle designer. So I've actually done that for both line widths of 4 points and 8 points. And we can just look at it visually now. Let me look at the 8-point version. I just named it House 8. So that's looking a little better. We probably could compare it best by actually bringing in another piece. So let me go ahead and bring in the door. So that's going to be piece number 2. So there's the door, and you know, I can see that this is also way too big. So if I look at the picture again, it's going to have to be scaled down. And when I scale it down, these lines are going to get thinner. And at least in the area of the house, I'd like to keep the lines all about the same. So I'm going to actually go with even smaller house line widths. And I made one that was 4 points as well. And I think this is about as small as I want it to get. So we're going to go with the house 4 as my house shape. And now I can go ahead and scale the door, put them inside the house, and let's see here. I can close this up. I'm not going to mess with this one anymore. So let's change this piece scaling a bit. Let's bring it down to say 75. 75% of its original size. And that's looking pretty close. Close enough here for demonstration purposes. The only thing I need to do now is move it and position it where I'd like to relative to this picture. And you'll see I don't bring it all the way down to touch the bottom. We're not making a drawing here because this is actually going to become a puzzle piece at some point, and I'm going to want to have a little bit of puzzle piece around the shape. And from now on, for all the positioning, I want to view the puzzle from above. So that's this icon down here. Just lets me do my location setting easier. So first thing I'll do is I'll move the puzzle piece vertically down, which means make it more negative. And I may start by just sliding the slider, but then I want to be a little bit more fine-grained, and I'll use the spinner control and pressing the enter key. I want to move it up a little bit, so less negative. Maybe one more. And now I'll move it to the right, so sliding it horizontally in a positive direction. Getting pretty close, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, that's cutting it pretty close, We'll have to make sure that the puzzle piece itself, the base of the puzzle piece, is really close to the edge of the shape. So I still have some plastic inside the house as well when we cut it. But I'd say for now, that looks pretty decent. And now let's grab the window. So we're done with puzzle piece 2 for now. Come back and look at the window, put it in here, window. Also needs to be scaled down, probably more than the house, because the basic shapes are roughly the same, or more than the door, because the basic shapes are roughly the same size. So we'll scale you to say 50. Let's see what happens with 50. Maybe too much, 60. That's not bad. All right, let's move it horizontally and vertically. Bring it down to approximately where the top of the door is. Too far. Bring it on up. Okay, close enough. Move it horizontally by making it negative to bring it to the left, maybe a hair more, so that we again can have space around the raised shape for the base of the plastic piece. For now, let's say that's good. We'll leave it right there. Last thing we need to do is, and remember, we got these in this order: house, door, window, so that the window and the door can cut into the house puzzle piece. Piece 4 will be, let's bring the dog in now. And we'll slide him over to the side. He's pretty big. So let's scale him to say, I don't know, 80%. Not bad. Slide him horizontally. Too much. No. In fact, time to just start making finer adjustments. And then bring him down. Negative in the vertical direction. I want him to be walking on the ground. Pretty close. And last, let's bring in our cat. I'm going to scale him smaller than the dog. Scale him down around that big. Maybe make him a little bit bigger. Let's take him up to 70. I've only had male cats, so I'll probably be talking about him in the male gender. And slide him vertically down. Too far, way too far. Yeah, you can go off the puzzle pieces. No big deal. Just won't print that great. Back up a bit. Close. And then to the left. Not quite that far. Whoops, not quite that far. Well, we do want to have, again, some space between our raised images and the other ones for plastic. So Maybe I will push him a little bit more to the left, make him more negative. May need to do that with the dog too, make him a little further from the house, but we'll see here in a moment. And then for decorative purposes, we'll add the road down here. We still have to come back to all these puzzle pieces and size their bases properly. But let's go down and put a decoration in. It's going to be a line. And the height here is the height above the base, and we don't want the line to be confused as a proper raised image like these Bliss symbols, so we'll only bring it up 2/10. That's typically about a layer worth of height. And B and C are the X and Y locations for the left edge or starting edge of the line. D and E are the X and Y locations of the right edge, and then F is the overall width of the line. So we'll start here by giving ourselves a line that actually has some width. Let's make it 5 millimeters for now. And now we'll be able to see something when we start starting and ending the lines. We know that we want these, by the way, these measurements of start and end are relative to the center of the base. In fact, if I turn the coordinates on, I can actually see where the center is. It's right here. And I know that my base is 70 millimeters tall and 100 millimeters wide. So over here is -50 and +50, +35 and -35. So if I want to start over here close to the edge, I want to be around -50 for the starting point. So back down here, I'll make the X value negative, oh, I don't know, -48. Okay. And you can see already it's drawing something. It's -48 to the starting place, which is 0, 0. You can see that the Y location is at the center of this line. But we want it to go all the way to +48. Remember, this is the X location of the end of the line. And all of these are described on the web page, how to translate this for lines and circles. Here we go, we're going all the way across. The thing we have to adjust now is we'd like this street to be down here below the feet of the dogs and below the house. So we're going to move things in the Y direction. This is a good way to figure it out here, is just to play with one end of it. But we know we're going to be around, I don't know, let's say 25. Let's try that first, -25. That's pretty darn close. So we'll make the other end a -25 as well. And I always hit the Enter key afterward. Boy, that's just about where we'd like it, but I would kind of like my street to be a little wider. So I'm going to widen this to 10 and make adjustments as necessary. Okay, now we got to move it down a little further. That's the only thing left. And so I'm going to move it down by 3. So we'll move 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction. How's that look? And 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction. So we're nice and parallel. And you know, we look pretty close to done with it at this point. And really, at this point, we have got an explorer that we can produce. Right now, the explorer part of this is done. The only thing we need to do at this point is, if we're going to make a puzzle out of it, we have to create the backings for each of these pieces and make sure that they're the right size and that they don't overlap into some other piece. So with that, the decoration done, let's now go back and let's look at the individual puzzle pieces. So we'll start with, let's look at the puzzle piece that is the house. And so what I can see here is I've actually got some stuff cutting into it. That's the window is cutting into it here, the back of the window. First, let's make sure that there's enough plastic around the house, and I can get rid of this again. So go back to puzzle piece 1, and now we're going to mess with this piece height and width stuff. So the height needs to be much taller. So we at least double that. Let's just go ahead and make it a 50 right now, just to see where that puts us. It's plenty big. You actually bring it down. We don't want it too far away from the edge. We might be hitting the dog and the cat, but there's no dog and the cat above. But there's definitely a street down here we don't want to be running into. So let me bring it down to, we'll see how that looks. And then we definitely need to make it wider. Let's make it 50 wide. Okay, better. Again, we might be, yeah, I can see right here we're notched. This is notched. This is the dog's piece right now. So I'm going to bring it in just a hair, again, 48. Right there. And let's start with that as the house. We have a lot of other pieces to coordinate yet. Let's look at part number 2, or puzzle piece number 2. That's the door. And what I see is it looks pretty decent, except the window is cutting into it over on this side. We might just consider leaving that the way it is for now, and really need to clean up the window. So let's look at the window. That's puzzle piece number 3. So his surround is way too big right now. He's cutting into house and door. So we'll make him small. Let's bring him down to 17 maybe in height and in width. We can actually go back right now and take a look at the other pieces and see if we've made life better for them. So the door is okay now. It's no longer being cut into by the window. And how's the house look? It looks pretty good though. He says you are right up against each other right now, and it'd be nice to have some space in here so that the individual holes seem separate. Now, a couple ways to do that. You can move the 2 pieces further apart, but then we're going to be cutting into the house again, or resize them so we don't cut into the pieces around them. Let's just see if we can make the surrounds for these 2 pieces a little bit smaller yet. So take the window down again by 1 and 1. Beginning to get a separation now. And we'll do the same with the door. 1 and 1. I might want to take you down even further. Let's see if I can take it down further and still survive. So this is kind of where I'd like to be, but let's see how that looks as a puzzle piece. The door is puzzle piece 2, right? Very close to the edge. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to compensate by scaling the door a little smaller. So we'll scale it down to 70. All right. Now I've got something that'll fit on the puzzle piece nicely and still look pretty good for the house puzzle piece. And the cat and the dog, they're going to be fairly easy, I think. So let's go look at them. Start with the dog, puzzle piece number 4. As you can see, this is all just, try it, see what it looks like. And we're definitely going to have to widen his puzzle piece a bit, or his base. Puzzle piece 3. Nope, that's the window. 4 is the dog. So widen him up. Oh, I have to just change this height. And that we had, again, we might be running into the road at this point, so I'll bring it back down. We can really get away with 20 on the height, but we do need to make the width a bit more. Okay, the only concern I have at this point is, am I encroaching on the house? Let's take a look at it real quick. Yep, so we ate into the side of the house. Now that may not be a problem for you, but I'd rather not. And I can fix this just by moving the dog a little bit to the right. I may have to scale him smaller too. Or you know what? Rather than fight this, I am going to move him to the right, but I'm going to, let's look at the puzzle base again. I'm going to move him to the left here, but I'm also going to, I can also make the whole base wider. Yeah, I'm just going to move him to the right. So he's a dog. Let's move him horizontally +1. Do one more. Yep. Let's do that. This is, it's an art. Whatever feels right to you. And now back to my puzzle piece. So I'm no longer eating into the side of the house. I could have made this piece closer to the wall as well. And back to looking at the dog. Let's just say he's done. Time for cat. Cat is puzzle piece 5. I'm saying puzzle piece because that's what I'm looking at right now is the puzzle piece. Pretty close, except I know he's eating into the decorative street, so we definitely can make him less tall. In this, now we're getting into the realm of when is a piece too small to be properly handled by an individual? When is it too small, or when does it become a choking hazard and all that? I'm going to try making it a little wider. And now it's wrapping around very nicely. Let's go back to the house just to make sure we're not encroaching on it. Nope, still looks good over here. This is where it would have fit into the house if it was going to. Okay, so last thing I can do, all my puzzle pieces look okay. Last thing I can do is come back to the puzzle base and then say, when I actually print this, I'm going to need to have slots here for all those pieces to go into. So let's see what it looks like, what the base looks like when we see the slots. So right now we don't see any slots because and this will work for our Explorer, our home Explorer. But if I want to see what the slots look like, that's what they look like. So in the end, we'll actually be eating into the road a little bit. Now, I think I may move the road down some, just so I'm not eating into it as much. So let's move that road down. It was decoration 1, and I'm going to move it the Y direction down a little bit more. As long as I don't go off the edge. A little bit close. Up 1, move you to -29 as well. Hey, that's probably close enough for this job. So in order to make the puzzle, boy, it'd be nice if I had more space here. This darn house, let's go back up here. I'm going to make that house a little thinner. Oh, that was the height. We'll take a look at that. Make it a little thinner. So I actually get some space here between the puzzle pieces. Let's see what the house looks like. Look at just that puzzle piece. Oh, it's just fine. It's just fine. I can make it even shorter here if necessary. That's still just fine. But we can stop here rather than go on and trim and widen and widen. All right, so we are really ready. So what I would do at this point is I would print a copy of the Explorer, and I do that by first saying I'm looking at the puzzle base, and I don't want to see puzzle slots. I just want to see the raised elements. So I print this, and I can swap filament once I've reached this top surface of the base of the puzzle. Now, that means going through the entire rendering process, saving as an STL, and then printing that STL. Then I come back and I say, oh, I want to show the slots. So this is now creating the actual puzzle. I'll print the base of the puzzle, again swapping filament just at this point for the road. Next thing I would do is go to each puzzle piece, starting with puzzle piece number 1, render and print it, render, save as STL and print. On to puzzle piece number 2, render, STL, print. And you can print them all at once because they're all the same thickness. And so when it comes to swapping filament even, you'll be swapping filament at the same print height. Just save them all as STLs and then put them all on your printer at the same time with the same print height as the point at which you swap filaments. And let's say I have that. And so that will produce all these, not that, that'll produce all these parts. I ended up with 2 of those. Okay, it'll produce all these parts and a final puzzle that looks like this when assembled. You can see the house and the door fit into, or the door and the window rather, fit into the house, which means you probably want to assemble it in that order, to put the house in, then put the window and door in. But what happens if these pieces are really too small to handle, or what? You look at that overall, it's just too small of a puzzle. You'd want a bigger puzzle. Well, there's a pretty easy way to make that happen too. The hard part is going to be on the printing side. It's going to take longer to print because it's bigger. It's going to take more filament to print because it's bigger. So how can I make this bigger? Let's go back and look at this puzzle base. And what I can do is just simply scale the part. And what it's going to scale is everything except the overall height and width of the base. So we'll have to adjust that separately. But let's say you want to make this 50% larger. Well, that's now 150% scaling. See, everything looks bigger. The slots are bigger, the decoration's bigger, but our base is too small for this. So we can adjust the base. We can make it 50% wider, so that would be 150 millimeters. And we can make it 50% larger, which would be 35 plus 70, 105 millimeters. And now we print this. If we go look at, I'm going to scroll out or zoom out. If we look at the individual tile pieces, they have already been adjusted properly. So are not tile pieces, the puzzle pieces. Look at puzzle piece number 1. It has been scaled up by 50%, all of the dimensions of it. Oh, sorry, that's number 2. Number 1, the house has been scaled up. The dog has been scaled up. Everybody's been scaled up to now properly fit in this larger base. That's all it took to rescale everything. The hard part now is printing it. It's going to take a lot longer. and the thing I will say, it says this on the web page, but let me say it in the video too. Printing large rectangular objects on a printer, especially, well, doesn't even matter how thick they are. It just matters that they're large with a solid object that is large and rectangular or square tends to lift up in one of these corners, sort of warp a little bit in one of the corners or several of the corners. Doesn't seem to be as a big a problem with circular shapes, but definitely with rectangular or square shapes. You can see some lifting as the plastic cools. It will shrink a little bit unless this is held down really well. And you can try adding a skirt, brim, no, I've forgotten the terminology, maybe a brim here to this, it's just a fine layer that extends outward. You know about that from just basic 3D printing. But removing that brim or skirt, I'd love to know whether I'm using the right word, later can still leave little bits of plastic on the edge here which can feel sharp. An alternative is just to put glue stick on your print surface, and that does a really good job of holding that first layer down throughout the print. And then you just clean the glue stick off when you're done, both from the print surface and from the back of your print if any of that is still there. Okay, forewarned is forearmed. That's all there is to doing this. Not too hard, just lots of little tiny adjustments to get just the look and feel you want.